Oh yeah.
Hello, and welcome to Marketing Monday. I hope you're as excited as I am. Woohoo, yeah.
Got a new intro and everything. We feel so professional right now.
I
Oh
know,
man, super
right?
exciting.
It's very exciting. Anyway, I am Brittany Sweetie, the Communications Manager with the Livestock Conservancy, and I am super excited to welcome Keisha Cameron here today. Yay! Welcome, Keisha. And poor Ryan is here as well. Ryan, do you want to introduce yourself? And then Keisha.
Yeah, sure. So, hey everyone, my name is Ryan Curitan, aka Pork Ryan, and I am the Breed Association Manager for the Livestock Conservancy. So grateful to be hosting Marketing Monday. It's my little baby. I birthed this with the team, and so I'm really grateful to have Keisha on today. So Keisha, could you just take a little bit of time to just introduce yourself to this audience, and also just a quick fact about Keisha: she is a board member for the Livestock Conservancy. So just another round of applause for Keisha for her volunteer efforts and her contributions to the board. So she's a part of the leadership, and so being able to have someone like Keisha on here is really amazing. So yeah, not trying to gas you up or anything, Keisha, but tell people a little bit about what you're doing, what your farm's like, and how your family's involved in all that.
Oh, thank you, first of all, for inviting me to participate in this. This is pretty special. Little bit different of a Monday for me. So I welcome the change of pace. Keisha Cameron, as you've already said, and my family and I own and operate High Hog Farm here in Grayson, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. And I am a self-proclaimed fiber fanatic. I think everybody has heard me say that. I feel like everybody knew how amazing, fibers and textiles were. And I am just showing up to the party and trying to, gobble as much up from that buffet as possible. We started with raising French Angora rabbits a little over almost 10 years ago. We've lost track. And somewhere about 4 years ago, we just brought in our first foundation flock of sheep. We are in our second year of breeding Gulf Coast natives, and last year I was able to adopt 2 beautiful Jacob ewes who were bred for their first time this year. So I'm all things wool and fiber and textiles and dyes, so I'm sure we'll get more into that. We also have, and I'm so in love with my woolly animals that I neglect to mention that my son has a small herd of La Mancha dairy goats. We also have some heritage breeds of a heritage breed of rabbit, the American chinchilla rabbits, and all of our poultry, minus a couple of rescues, are heritage breeds of poultry as well. And my beloved Hercules is a spotted saddle horse, so he's not a heritage breed, but he is the ambassador to all goodwill on the farm. So I think that covers the zoo. I didn't get too far into like the kids and their personality or the way my husband managed the farm, but it's a little zoo-like here.
Wow, all of those heritage breeds. I think you're not just a wool fanatic. I think you're also a heritage breed fanatic. From the sound of it, just a little bit, just a little bit. Well, this is Sheep Month, and so it's really great that you're raising Gulf Coast Native as well as Jacobs now. And so I kind of want to ask, what has your experience been raising these 2 different breeds of sheep? And, what are some differences, like for people who don't know anything about the 2 sheep, kind of just like illustrate for us, some of the differences in raising style, as well as like temperament, things like that.
That's a great question. So, like I mentioned, we brought Shug and Madam CJ our two Jacobs on to add to our flock of
Wait,
Gulf.
say those names again. One more time. One more time.
Everybody has a name. So it's Shug Avery, for anybody who's seen The Color Purple. And she is a beautiful blue-eyed gal, little you, and Madam CJ has just the most luscious fleece. So she was donned that title upon arrival. And they are a little more, I know some people refer to them as feral. That is not quite the experience. Sheep are much smarter than I think people give them credit for, but definitely are more hands-offish or stand back in the flock. When they first arrived, there was an interesting, there's the jockeying for position is in terms of who the flock hierarchy, who's going to rule the roost. And they were low man on the totem pole until they began to realize that he who has the horns claims the top spot at the feeding trough. So Shug and CJ have worked their way up. They're still to the point where I have a small flock, so most of my sheep will allow me, if I'm with them, to be hands-on with them. Like, actually, I'm not going to call them pets because that's the wrong connotation, but I have a very
humanized
relationship with my sheep. I can scratch underneath CJ's chin, but I have never been able to put my hands on without having to catch. I'm not able to just sit with and pet or love on CJ. The Gulf Coast, I only have one that's that way. They all do really well with parasite resistance. I do have a Gulf Coast border Leicester, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, border Leicester cross. She's a 73-quarter Gulf Coast, quarter border Leicester, and I can see the difference in her heat tolerance and some of the sensitivities when they're on pasture to she's more likely not to scour, but her stool to go soft in the spring when it's fresh grass and things like that. So fortunately, we got the Jacobs in, I want to say it was May. I have lost all this past year with the pandemic. Time has become this elusive thing, but it was spring. So we have not had them during early spring, but, and I don't know how controversial you want to get. Our practice on our farm is to worm as needed and to do regular checks. We do not just have a standard protocol of deworming. And I have not had to as of yet. And now, the fact that I'm even saying this out loud, but I have not had to worm any of them. We have been able to manage with them being on pasture. And when I see or feel as though there's maybe a sensitivity or a little bit of a burden, we have an area of woods that's just outside of our fence line where we allow them to kind of pretend they're goats for a little bit and browse up high. And that has made a difference. We'll do that for a couple of days. So right now it's just being really attentive. But I think that those breeds have made it possible for us to do that. So I'm not sure if I answered all your questions, but hopefully I got the bulk of it and you can just circle back if I missed something.
See, not only did you answer my question, you also showed what it means to be a farmer. I know on the Marketing Mondays and any of the chats I'm on, I always tell farmers that you are more than just a farmer. You're a data analyst, you're a scientist, you're a researcher, you're a poop observer, if you want to talk about that too. Yes. But it's really important that, when you start thinking about parasite loads, that a lot of people think that, oh, well, I just have to deworm and that's it. But really one of the best preventative ways of reducing parasite loads without necessarily needing going to dewormers just yet is by doing constant rotation, right? And I love how you talked about doing rotation from pasture to woodlands, right? Where they're not eating down, they're eating at eye height, or, for some of them who are a little more goaty, will like kind of climb up a little bit to get some of the other broadleaves. And that's the cool thing about heritage sheep, is that they're not finicky about what they eat. They're very, they'd like to take advantage of what's available, and they have a very broad palate. Whereas in, some of your more commercial sheep, it's either hay or nothing, right? That's all you get. But with a lot of the heritage sheep, you really see them having more variety in their palate. And that's really great for the farmer, because then that's allowing them to be more flexible with, pasture conditions versus conditions in the woods, and also being able to deal with parasite loads.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, I love that. And seasonal changes, you can track and then kind of know the personality of each sheep. And that's the thing that I really just love. I love sheep. And there's no way to talk about this and not sound like you're the crazy sheep lady. So it's just like, I love that they each have their own individual responses to what we give them. Like, I can predict who will pick through the feed for the oats, because we'll supplement with either a handful of oats or black oil sunflower seeds, depending upon the season. And I already know that Pearl is going to pick out every single black oil sunflower seed before she touches it. I don't know how they manage to sort, while she's able to do that while playing, hockey and body checking the other sheep. It's quite something. It's impressive, but I digress. So yes, I agree. It's nice.
And then also with that, using the observational skills to actually see that each animal is an individual animal and has individual needs and does things as an individual, that's when you're developing that farmer's eye. And, normally I can tell who's a good farmer and who's someone who needs some improvement based on just listening to them talk about their animals, and you being able to say, yeah, this Pearl, she loved them seeds. I don't know what about it, but she loved them, and I'm doing this and doing that. That says that you are putting in time and energy into getting to know your livestock. And that's so important, especially with these heritage breeds or any livestock. But, since this is a livestock conservancy, with your heritage breeds, getting to know them and getting to know the little nuances about them is so important. It helps with your farming operation as a whole. So I did want to ask you a question that I think the audience should probably know. So when I was talking with you earlier, we talked about how to farm on small acreage and how even small acre farms should still be viewed as valid in terms of the farming community. So talk about how many acres are you farming with your sheep, both pasture and on the woods, as well as how you've been able to really manage that operation with the number of sheep that you have versus the number of acres that you're using right now.
That's awesome. Okay, so we are I've been told not to call it a micro farm, but it feels like it because we are on 5 acres.
Wow, 5 acres. All right.
So it's small. So the first thing that I had to recognize was my stocking rate was not going to be, I'm not going to have 25, or even like my mentor, Jan Southers, had like 60 head of sheep. That's just not realistic. But using every inch possible, responsibly possible is part of what we're doing. So we started looking, actually before we had sheep, at ourselves as being grass farmers, which I don't know if you remember, but for the first 2 years of us learning how to do this work, we had pigs. We had Gloucestershire Old Spot
Oh, I
Also,
remember that. Remember them days.
So but we realized that that really wasn't conducive for what the land wanted or needed. And then understanding that everything starts with the soil and the grass. So it has been an act of soil remediation, for lack of, like a better way of putting it, is just really building health and vitality back into the land. This year we've been here on the land for about 11, going into 12 years. I've lost track, like I said, but we've been farming the land, officially farming, we have our paperwork for almost 7 years. So the past 5 years has been building things to the point where you can see the vitality of converting what was once a wooded urban lot into a viable, sustaining space of forage. And this spring, we're putting in what I'm referring to, I'm going to coin this as my own because it doesn't tick all the boxes technically, but as a modified silvopasture with a fiber forest. So not a food forest, but a fiber forest, where we will be moving our sheep, rabbits, and chicken. And we do rabbits and chicken seasonally through the pasture. So it's not a continual stress on the land, but we'll be moving them through plantings of perennial fruit trees, and perennial or biennial fiber and dye crops. So wish me luck, but that is how we try to integrate and use both. So it's a complement, and understanding that as we establish like this ecosystem, that there's a balance between what one organism, what one living entity can offer to another, and then just paying attention to how does the grasses and the forages respond, and how are the perennial crops responding, and are the goats still stripping the bark off the fruit trees because that was annoying, and
darn goats.
are the sheep and the rabbits still having vitality and good health on that space, and then like you said, rotating. So I don't know if I've reached, I'm certain that if you watched me in the garden, you wouldn't say good farmer, but when I'm with the animals, my good farmer like credibility goes up just a little bit. so hopefully, and I don't know if I got all the questions again, because it's such a good question, but we're using and integrating agroforestry, silvopasture, rotational grazing into this small space, and keeping our numbers sound, and then making sure that we're really attentive and responsive.
Wow, yeah, you answered all the questions, by the way, just in case you didn't know.
Good.
Yeah, I remember before I worked for the Conservancy, before you're even a board member, we had already knew each other. And I remember you having the old spots. I was like, yeah. And then like I realized you weren't raising old spots anymore. I was like, what's up with, because I'm pork rind, so love pigs. I'm like, what's up with that? But to hear how you realize that pigs really wasn't what the land needed, and you prioritize the needs of the land rather than your own, like, whether you felt like you could get a better market or whatnot. You start working with the land rather than trying to work against it. And I think that's extraordinarily smart as a farmer, because it's all about how do we work in unison with the land that we have. It's all about how do we build up that soil at the end of the day? How do we become good environmental stewards, right? And so, yeah, to hear that and say, you know what, I could have pigs, but the land probably would look a whole lot different than compared to having sheep, and really building up that soil fertility a lot better. So, bravo, bravo,
Thank you.
Bravo on that.
Thank you. It was a tough decision.
Oh, yeah. I bet if I had to get rid of pigs, oh yeah, I probably would crowd a couple times. But so this is Marketing Monday, and so I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what it's like being a small scale, or like I like to use when I go international, smallholder farm, raising sheep, other fiber animals that are not on our the shaving list, but or we still love them. We still I heart them. What is it like raising those types of sheep and trying to find a market for yourself? Like, talk about, the learning process behind that versus where you currently are.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow. So
Big question, right?
because it's just for me, and I don't know if I will. I'm going to pause because
Take your time.
everything has been a learning journey. If you're familiar with High Hog Farm or my little corner of the social media world, I use the hashtag Diary of a Farm Virgin, which is just this journey into learning and reconnecting it with agrarian and agrarian arts, heritage, and how do we shift from really what I'm coming to understand is a very kind of embedded consumer mindset into a way where I can be a better environmental steward, but not just, and a better human being. The quote that farming is not about the cultivation of crops, but becoming a better human being. So that's the journey. And I laugh because every time I think I have figured out some small piece, and if I look back 10 years ago, I'm certainly a better farmer, but the amount, like the sheer tonnage of things that I don't yet know is just, it could, stun a team of oxen. It's really impressive. And that's what I love so much about it. So I try things, and I'm willing to show up, put in hard work, and do my best. And one of the things where I'm at, where we are right now, is just understanding that because of our size, our production does not end at the first harvest. Everything at this point needs to be a value added item or an opportunity to be shared the learning experience. Even sometimes that learning experience is, don't do this, it doesn't work, with the broader community. So agro-tourism, agro-education, and value-added products have been the thing that I think just because of curiosity and my love of doing things was a kind of the full circle for us. It's not just harvest the crop, bag it and drop it off at a market somewhere. It has been, what are the different possibilities and what are the ways that we can use this product? And now having to be more conscientious about, the numbers and the scale and the consistency of being able to say, we have 10 fleeces. Last year it was 10 fleeces. 10 fleeces is not going to produce, it's not, I have 3 teenage boys, well, not even teenagers, grown children who like to eat. That's not even, the grocery bill. So,
I think a couple of them play sports too, right?
I have all of them are athletic, and
oh yeah, that's a big food bill right there.
Help me! Why do you think I'm raising all this food? It's just, I'm like, if nothing else, we won't starve. But this past year, we've gotten from where I spin wool. I am a budding. I really kind of finding what you love. And natural dyes has been something that I really enjoy. So we will be expanding, like I mentioned, my fiber forest, to add natural dye crops, medicinal crops, because the beauty is so much of what we derive from our natural environment serves multiple purposes. So it's really kind of being aware of how can I plant calendula and then that be a medicinal crop, be something you can add to your salads to make salves, also dye the wool with, and it is a pollinator. Like, there's just the list of things of knowing what to plant where, and then how that can support everything being integrated in together.
And I'm still making sure the sheep don't get into it too, or the
yes,
goats.
yes, yes. I don't know if you've been here to see where choice language has been used at times when you see. We have now actually, so our silvopasture beds in our trial orchard area, because I can actually, if this works the way it's supposed to, I can see all 5 acres functioning this way. But right now we've started with just over an acre. It's about 1.3 acres of area where the beds, that's not really the right term, but the sections with the fruit trees, while the fruit trees are being established, have heavy cattle panel fencing, because although it says goat and sheep wire, it doesn't actually prevent goats and sheep from climbing and eating your trees. Just that's a free tip. So we have cattle panel, which then has chicken wire netting, and we're going to actually, because we also have a pressing deer population, have to taller posts in, and our planting date is March 2nd, I think, is a Tuesday, which the trees will be going in. We have some volunteers coming out. But yes, making sure that what you're planting also is not something that is going to result in a vet bill for you down the road. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what I think you were asking. It's just having this full circle cycle of the planting, cultivating, harvesting, and then the value added plus the sharing with, be it through, we just started a podcast, so it's in social media. So just telling the story all the way to inviting people in to learn hands-on and be part of the story, because that's part of the healing and the health and vitality that the land needs, is that every living thing has to do its part. So,
well, and we're going to talk about the podcast, because I remember when you had brought it up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you gotta let me know when it's going to drop." So we'll do that at the end. But I love the quote that you used where you talked about, farming is not the cultivation of crops; it's to be a better human. And if I could do a remix to that quote, I would say that farming is not the cultivation of crops, but it's the cultivation of people. And it's like, why do you farm? Do you farm just for yourself, or are you farming for other people? And, you look historically at the utilization of farming, it was to have community. And then that community turned into civilization, right? And so you can't have the civilization as we see civilization without an agricultural component. And so, to mention volunteers and people helping you out and sharing your story. So I kind of want to see, how this aligns to marketing. How is the cultivation of your community, you cultivating your community, educating your community, giving to your community, being a resource for your community, how is that playing into your marketing strategy? And not saying you're doing it to manipulate people, but how does that work with you marketing what you're doing?
So I was reluctant for many years to formally label what the community building and the marketing, or the community building that we saw happening, as a marketing strategy, because it was just an extension of me winging it on one hand at first, and then really understanding that it was about being transparent and sharing the process. And then as much as I've come to understand that there's just such a legacy and history tied to, like you said, agriculture. There's no culture without agriculture. And the different expressions and the ways that people have for millennia shown up and been in relationship with the land and had to develop and support their relationships with one another. But then I began to realize that the people themselves that were asking me, or who had been following and become interested and engaged, were asking for me to organize these communications in ways which would give them a greater opportunity to feel as though they were invested or taking part in this experience. Because I had been like, well, this is what I'm doing. Oh, look, Rosemary produces this color dye, and I also am cooking a chicken with it that I just grabbed from the backyard. You know, it was this thing of like, oh, I bet you didn't know. Well, actually, it was more, I bet everybody knew, and why didn't anybody tell me that you could do all this with rosemary? And I was actually starting to get complaints that people were like, but we can't buy anything, and we want to buy something, and we want to come help, and you make it seem like fun. Because, you know, everything, you know, the part where when you're mucking out the chicken, that it doesn't, like, this is me censoring myself. When you're cleaning up the hard parts, that doesn't make it to Instagram and Facebook. You know, that's not the thing that you highlight as you're gagging on the smell. So people tend to be drawn towards this pastoral vision of what farming is. And as I've started to be a little bit more like, here's, you know, look, I'm sweaty and it's gross out here, and it's 900 degrees because I live in Georgia.
Oh, yeah, humidity. Whew, whew.
Right. And it's funny because you get volunteers, and I've said this so many times. I'm like, you know, stop asking to visit the farm between November and February. Because one, it's muddy and it's gray out. Come, you know, and then people want to come help plant, and I love that. In, you know, March, April, May, there's just so much life. There's chicks in the incubator that are hatching. There's baby kids. Everybody loves a baby goat. I mean, I have rabbits, sheep. I get it. Goat kids are the cutest farm animal of them all. It's just, it is what it is. Understood. But guess what? When it gets to be like June 12th, and the heat index is up and there's still that green haze of pollen, like, we still need people to come out then. So you are welcome between June and August to come and lend a hand as well, because we'll still be out there. That was just a separate little PSA.
Well, I was going to say to that, you know, Georgia, when you farm in Georgia or just live in Georgia, you know, you don't sweat in Georgia. Georgia sweats on you. That's how bad it is. It's disgusting, the amount of humidity that's there. Yes. Yeah, it's all it's not your sweat. It's Georgia's sweat all on you.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But to answer your question, the way that I feel like the community has evolved, and I always tell people we started backwards. We started off saying, hey, and if I had known better, I don't know that I would have done it the same way. I probably would have shied away from sharing our journey, especially looking back and seeing pictures. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what were we doing? You know, there was a story, and I laugh about it. I probably shouldn't tell anybody this, but when we first had chickens, we were given 7 baby chicks from my horseback riding instructor, 5 of which turned out to be roosters. And yeah, those quickly were given away. And so I had Zoe and Chloe, who were my 2 egg-laying hens. And I remember them talking about, you know, my backyard chickens, like all the things that I don't even kind of really gravitate towards now. But I've got these 2 chickens, and I had read about mites, which wasn't what it was. It was molting, but I didn't know any better. So I'm Googling how to bathe a chicken, and I'm getting all sorts of marinade recipes. It's fantastic. And I eventually am in my kitchen bathing two chickens in the sink. Like, the things that I should never admit that. But it's funny to me because now I'm like raising and hatching heritage breed, Dorkings and Buckeyes and maybe Delawares, we'll see. And it's just such a different understanding and such a different relationship, but from where I came from. And I think that's where people have been like, okay, you have something to offer and we want to get started, and you make it seem like it's possible. So I don't know that that's a formal marketing strategy as much as it is just reversing and backfilling. It's kind of backfilling this farm that has come to be in this community that made the farm happen, and then figuring out a way to incorporate and include people so that they know how much they're needed and how much they're appreciated to support the work, because we did it backwards. I don't know if that's helping. Probably not people, but that's how
you didn't do it backwards. I wholeheartedly believe that you did it the way that it should be with marketing. A lot of, especially commercial marketing, it's about, let me sell you a dream, right? I think, Steve Jobs was talking about, like, I want to sell you that you need this. Even though you don't need an iPhone, I want to sell you to think that you need an iPhone, but instead, with your experiences, you had an organic marketing, right? Where you were doing the things that you were doing, not for fame, not to, be famous on Instagram, right? You look at Instagram now, you got all these famous homesteaders, right? And a lot of people are flocking, no pun intended, to being homesteaders because, oh, look, it's so beautiful, it's so pretty, but you're sharing your actual experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly multi-chickens. And, that transparency and that sharing of your story from the beginning, before there ever was a marketing strategy, I think is what allowed for you to have a genuine approach, a genuine presence, and people flock to that. So, this really shows that the best marketing strategy is character.
Thank you so
character.
Much. Thank
that's
you so
really
much.
It's being honest.
Because half the time, we have a farm consultant now who is absolutely amazing and is not asking us to be any different, but just to be more intentional. And it's really in light of the pandemic. And I can share, my husband has been okay with me sharing that he has been for 20 plus years working in software engineers, and has just recently been laid off after 10 years within the airline telecommunications industry. So mind you, the global travel shutdown, understand it's an economic recession and people are feeling the pinch. We are really blessed because we have this farm to fall back on, but it's a different dynamic. The tension is different because it's not like you go to work and then to support your home and your life back home, like it's two separate things, and you don't live where you do and then because your work, they're all together, they're connected. So our work and the significance of shifting this and needing to be intentional and listen to our amazing consultant and follow their lead, as they're saying, you have to start making sure that there's product in the shopping cart year round and that you're maintaining engagement. Yeah, because the value added, I'm not always consistent. I'm a farmer. I'm a wife and mother first.
Say that one more time.
I'm a wife and mom first. And then I'm a farmer and a steward, and I have to take care of what needs being done. And then there's the value added. So it's like I almost needed a 6-month head start. But as COVID shifted, we saw like choices that, we are doing the heritage breeds and want to raise them out as slow growing options for meat because the flavor is better, all the benefits that we know. come with heritage breeds and heritage livestock.
Amen.
And then
Amen.
we are trying to do that. And then I found myself still on top of our program, our poultry improvement program, to also raising 100 meat birds, because we weren't sure. There was so much insecurity and uncertainty at the beginning of the pandemic around accessibility for meat. And there's, really highlighted just how dysfunctional. Yeah, am I allowed to talk about the food system?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
How
yeah.
dysfunctional our food
I'll
system
allow it. Go ahead, girl.
So yeah, it's been different in terms of now this season really coming from last year, highlighting just how much the community is important and how much we felt separated and disconnected. And now being smart health-wise, how do we invite people to still be participants in this journey? How do we still make sure that what we are raising and producing gets to those families in a way that is safe and viable and consistent? What does that scale look like? Because there is definitely room to scale up, but we had to actually let go of our woofer. We had at one point a farm woofer that was with us for about 7 months, who was amazing. So our labor went down, but then at the same time, production needs to go up. And it's just this balancing act. And I don't think it's unique to just us. I think a lot of people are feeling that. And we're just trying to reevaluate how we show up and serve best we can.
Wow, that's great. That's so great. So everyone, hopefully you have been enjoying Keisha Cameron. And yeah, I don't think there's anyone who's watching this that probably isn't. So anyways, Brittany, do we have any questions? I'm pretty sure we got plenty of at least comments, shout outs, and hellos.
Yes, let's see. Morgan Farms, hello. Thanks for joining us today. They raise Jacob and Shetlands as well in Kentucky. Yay.
Nice.
Let's see. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us today. She breeds and raises Narragansett turkeys. Any suggestions on finding a good market for them? This is her second year. Last year, some of her regular turkey buyers tried the few she had.
Well, if I can give a comment, since this is sheep month, can we connect Jennifer with Keisha to answer that question off the chat? That's okay.
Sure.
I love turkeys too, y'all. Just FYI.
We used to have turkeys briefly. I love turkeys, but yeah, no.
Let's see.
Great with tits.
I have some ideas.
Let's see. Hi, Jen. Thanks for joining us today here in New Jersey with Baby Doll South Downs. That's exciting. Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Brian.
Great points being made about working with the land. Let's see. Hi, Summer. Thanks for joining us today. She can relate to heat and humidity, central Louisiana.
Yeah. That's even worse.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining us today. She's joining us from Kenai, Alaska. All right.
Wow, man, we gotta hear what you're raising up there, Lisa. Let us know.
Well, that is all the questions. Just shout outs today.
Oh, shout outs. All right, we good with that. We good with that. So I want to talk a little bit more about value added, because you kept mentioning that, Keisha, and how that's a growing part of your operation, to the point where now you're saying you're going to have a fiber forest. So obviously, super growing part of your operation. What made it advantageous for you to start considering providing value added, especially when it comes to fiber, especially with sheep?
Well, I think part of it was just me. I'm a history nerd. Is that even a term? Well, whatever that is, where you read way too much for any one brain to hold. And I love the idea. And my background before entering farming was intercultural communication. So I am fascinated by culture and the way in which, you know, as anthropology, like the way communities organize themselves on the land and the expressions of that. So agrarian arts is kind of where we ended up. And so when I started looking at, like, again, aha moments to me and me alone, oh, wait a minute, you can get, so when people talk about bark tanning, or, you know, you have a hide, you have this animal that you raise and you have a relationship with, and there's that dynamic of the exchange, like it's given its life in order to support you as you've helped to support its life while it's here with you on the farm. And for me, I don't want anything to go to waste, so I felt a obligation to learn how to start tanning the hide. So I learned and did my first sheepskins last year. And then somebody invited me to a deer processing class. And I know that's, you know, wild game, but just bark tanning. And then, oh, so wait a minute, willow is a tanning substance? Well, there's a volunteer willow down there, and I can take that and then incorporate with this. And then that's also medicinal. And it just becomes this winding, I call it falling down the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's funny because you actually have rabbits too.
Yeah, which is fitting. I figure like there's some way, and that'll be a connection at some point. But being able to slow down enough to educate myself and those around us, and each person in my family has a responsibility. So it's not just me doing all this. It makes it sound like I have a cape and, you know, super cape on. But, you know, we are all showing up and learning how to use each piece of the land, or our space where we're stewarding, to go into something that has, which I think of as this land-based living has an artistic, it's like where art meets science. So I call it agrarian arts. So yes, I have sheep. I love sheep. They're dual purpose sheep. So one of the sheep is in the freezer. I have his hide. He's supporting and feeding us. And then has also added beauty and functionality to the home. That will scale up. The best example I can probably give is right now I'm in love with hibiscus, roselle, Thai roselle hibiscus, because knaaf, or jute, for lack of a better word, in India, this plant, even though it's a slightly different variety, but this plant is a bast fiber. So I can get the calyxes for my tea and my sorrel, and then I can have the leaves for my salad, and then I can take the stems and I can ret them and then process and incorporate into the fibers, and incorporate that, whether I'm blending it with, I mean, I'm not that far into it yet, but with wool or with other products, and having the time and the space to set it up to do that. So not wasting or not looking at something as strictly just for consumption or commodity, like how much, which is where I really struggle with heavy, intensive plantings and rotations. And, you know, I'm breeding once a year, I'm shearing once a year, I'm not shearing twice a year. And we might have to look at that going forward, but the idea is just to be in season, which is why the winter months are so hard, because we only grow 3 seasons a year. And then between breeding to lambing season, we are in planning and rest mode, and that's when a lot of the value added things are being created. So I don't know yet, and I would love to hear from the audience as well. I don't know what your format's like, but I don't know necessarily how people maximize their yields in such a way that is the right number, or the perfect sustainability point. Does that make sense? Where you know whether or not you've got, you know, I'm learning, for example, I can shear the fleece, I can also then suet bath it, which isn't too labor intensive, and then sell it as clean fleece that just needs to be flipped, and then turned either into top or roving. I can then also set aside a portion of that where I'm actually dyeing it with any of the natural dyes and the crops that are here, and selling it in bundles as mixed roving, different colors of mixed roving. And that's been responsive, but I have not hit the sweet spot just yet of, do I blend it with the Angora? Like, what is that number and what does that process look like? So I don't know if you have a community sharing space. Maybe this is better for the Livestock Conservancy, Facebook page or whatever, but those are things where value added and at the proper scale is important. And we're looking more at that.
Good. First off, I appreciate your honesty. Again, character, biggest marketing point ever. It's really important that people understand that, what defines success, and what defines success is going to look and should look different for every person. When you think about kind of the lifestyle that you have, Keisha, or you got family, like how do I take care of my family, my obligations to my children, my obligations to my husband, your husband, not my husband, I don't have a husband. How do you figure that out and then farm and then deal with customers in a way that's providing consistency or quality product? And figuring that out is going to be an evolving thing, and it's going to be trial and error. And then as the seasons change, as another global pandemic happens, I hope not, things are going to be really fluid. Yeah, I know. They're going to be really fluid. It's like, don't wish that upon people. Things are going to be really fluid. And so I think that's the cool thing, is that you're willing to be fluid with your circumstances and your situations and your family needs. I think a lot of people who are farming nowadays, new and beginning farmers, get really caught up in wanting to stick to a model and to the point where they'll die with that model if they have to. And that's where you see a lot of farms that don't make it after the 3-year mark or the 5-year mark. And so, with farming longevity, it's about how do I accommodate the needs of myself, my family, my community, my customers, and the land in a way that has balance. But at the end of the day, you can't be at the bottom of that, because that's where you get farmer burnout, and that's also where people start quitting farming. And so I'm glad that you're open and honest to figuring out how you do that with your farming operation. And it's really important for a lot of people to hear that, because by hearing that, they feel less alone. Like, oh, you're going through that too. I'm not alone in that. And so that's super valuable, Keisha. Super, super valuable.
Thank you. I appreciate that encouragement. As I look down over just our list of things that we have our hands on. My youngest is the goat herder, and he makes the goat milk soap. And so setting him up on a schedule where he's consistently making that has been, just since the beginning of the year, has been huge. And then my middle one is the chick magnet. He hates that nickname, so I say it as often as possible. He is all things poultry. And then my oldest, who is the one with the degree in environmental science, is the rabbit expert. So he's good with rabbits. And then my husband and I really just kind of deal between my horse, who's my baby, and my life partner, and my sheep. That's kind of how things stay afloat. But each of those has a point past the point of harvest where we are then contributing. And actually, God bless a community of farmers, because we just processed our first Dexter cow, which
Wow.
is a heritage breed.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
but I had a friend who had pasture, nice pasture, was able to finish him there. So it was a grass-fed, grass-finished beef, which we were able to put half in the freezer, and then the other half we were able to share with family. You know, my sister was insistent that we get a cow for many years, and we finally did, and it's enough to supply. And I think I bring all that up to say, when you support and encourage small farmers, because I know that there was a time where it was, you know, go big or go home, and that we are in the situation where we are now because of the sheer numbers. And I have a lot of respect for anybody who has that kind of responsibility on their shoulders to provide for hundreds of thousands of people. That's a burden that I would never wish, you know, on my family to have to deal with. But there's space in that for small farmers when you think hyper local, and there is value in saying, I fed 3 other families, and I actually help those families understand the ways which they can then be productive and have a healthy relationship with the land to produce what they can, so that that can be shared within, they can steward and also share with their community. And when there's more spaces where it's a both and approach to our food system, instead of this contentious battle between which small farm versus industrial ag or big farm has more importance or more value, I think then we start to address some of the problems that we're seeing. So I hope that people can see that and say, yeah, it was only one cow, which is feeding 2 families, not to mention the dinners and the times where you open up your table to others. But then it's only this many chickens, or it's only this much wool. But the idea is that we all kind of return to a more sane and supported, or easily supported scale, where we're not extracting from our environment, but that we are in continual, like you said, flux with the environment and the people around us, so that we can support one another, support it all. And I feel like it can be done. That's my soapbox. I tend to get really worked up, but I feel like that's where we need to get back to a common sense approach. And it's not a one or the other proposition in my mind. It just seems like we're spending so much energy fighting between 2 possibilities, and neither of which are the answer, that it's got to be somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm. That's one kind of stance that the Livestock Conservancy takes, is we believe that everyone can play a role in the conservation of heritage rare breeds, whether they be an industrial, or commercial or modern, or whether they be small farmers. There are a lot of people in particular species industries that, because of the work that we're doing, have seen, oh, that's interesting. These breeds actually do need to be conserved. And we do need to preserve their genetics through DNA sampling and cryogenetics and stuff like that. I mean, what small farmer is doing that, right? No small farmer is having a cryogenetics lab, at the back 40. No one, But and so that's also why that's the other part is important. And then when you get to the smallholder farmers, every animal counts. Don't care if you just got one cotton patch goose, that still counts, or if you have one Shetland sheep, that still counts. And so being able to just articulate that story when you have guests come over, like, hey, I might got one sheep, but let me tell you about this sheep, best sheep I ever had, right? They might be like, well, I don't see the need for one sheep. I need 10 sheep. Where'd you find the farmer at? Tell me where. Oh, they're like right across the street. I can just go and they got sheep for me. Who knew? And so that's why it's important that I think people start validating farmers wherever their scale is. whether they got one animal and they're just starting out, or maybe they've had one animal for the last 10 years, and that's good for them. They're okay with that. And being able to say, you still matter. The work that you're doing is still important. Sure, it might be small, but the impact is still something that's needed with heritage breeds. Every breed needs to be conserved. Every breed needs as much support as we possibly can give them. So I'm really appreciative that this is why I brought you on, Keisha, because you really help illustrate that even if people want to consider you a micro farm, that you still have value, that your farm still has value, that your farming practices still have value, that the communities that you serve, the families that you feed or support still have value. So yeah, I appreciate your service. I appreciate you
I
doing all that you
appreciate
do.
the opportunity to share. This has been fun. I appreciate you just even letting me offer my experiences to the audience. So that's been pretty cool. It's been pretty cool.
Well, Brittany, do we have any more questions, comments, thoughts, or shout outs?
I believe so. Let me see. There was a bunch that came in. I'm trying to find where we left off last time. There we go. Hi, Amanda. Thanks for joining us today. Amanda says, hi from Joko Farm. Can we get a link for your podcast?
Yeah, that's coming up. Just stay tuned, Amanda. We got you covered.
We'll do the shameless plugs at the end. Amanda also says she raises heritage breeds alongside an edible forest garden and would love to follow along on your fiber forest journey.
Wow, look at that.
I love it. Love it. I would love to see it would be a mutual exchange of at least bearing witness to each other's journey, I would hope. So love to see what you're doing as well, Amanda.
Absolutely. Hi, Summer. She's learning to tan hides now. It is very intimidating. Thanks for joining us, Summer.
Well, hold on one second, because she said it was very intimidating. That a little bit means that there's a little fear attached to that. So, Keisha, what kind of hope can you bring to Summer when it comes to tanning hides? What kind of encouragement could you give her?
I think I would start where we started with the embracing imperfection. Just learning to not only and ambiguity. Those are like my life mottos. Not necessarily by choice, but look, here we are. So just learning to take it one step at a time and not overthink it, and then be willing to develop your own, because as you experience it, then you can develop your own style and preference for what tanning solutions you like, and whether you want to pickle your hide or truly tan the hide, and all those little intricacies. But it's very easy to be overwhelmed when you try to bite the whole cow at one time. No pun intended. So
you got this, Summer. You can do it.
Yeah, you got this, Summer. Good luck, girl.
Sorry, Ryan. This is a long one.
Okay. I'm not the star of the show.
Lisa Marie is joining us from Hampton Heritage Homestead in Kenai, Alaska. They're going to be looking into ways to get more heritage livestock breeds in Alaska to offer our locals. That's exciting. We currently raise poultry breeds, Morans, Welsumers, Faverolls, Olive Eggers, Moss Eggers, and Saramas. We'll be adding in more next year. I have also raised Buckeye and Black Jersey Giants in Alaska.
All right.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow. Well, thank you, Lisa, and the Hampton Heritage. That's really great. That's really, really great. If you need any help in terms of more knowledge, more information, more support, definitely hit us up on email. Email over calls, because we're not at the office every day nowadays with COVID-19. But definitely send us an email and let us know if you need any help with anything, or that's getting in contact with breeders or whatnot. But for anyone who doesn't know, we do have a breeders and product directory online at the livestockconservancy.org. So go check that out if you're interested in finding products or breeding stock or just animals within your area.
Absolutely. Let's see. Hi, Greg. Thanks for joining us today. Find out what fits you and your values, goals, and situation. So more praise for that.
They got a cute kid.
That is real cute. Summer again, we are a military family, and the farm we are hoping will be our retirement plan. It is very hard running a household and a small scale farm on your own. I have days that I feel the burnout. I think everybody feels the burnout.
I think that for me, the thing that comes up when I'm reading that is because that resonates so deeply, and there's a knowing that you get when you just hear Summer share that, is that allowing yourself times to rest. Like even in nature, there's an ebb and flow, and we feel like we have to be on and producing all the time, and that you are allowed to be in season. And unfortunately, that doesn't mean that there aren't potential trade-offs for our, economic situation or whatever, but just finding ways to slow down, to laugh more. And I'm assuming Summer is doing all of these things and already knows it. So it's more of just me saying, from the choir, yeah, you got this. We got this. We can do this. Just hang in there. But be willing to just take a deep breath, recharge your sense of humor, and do a little at a time and know when to stop. Outside will be there tomorrow. Not going anywhere. So
if I can add to that, Summer, one thing I always tell people is that you're not the farm. You are not the farm. You are Summer, Riley, Simpson, Hobby. Wow, interesting. That's a really interesting name. I like that. And what I mean by that is a lot of people start finding so much of their identity to their farm, their brand, that when the brand becomes a little too much, or it's in a season in life where the brand or the farm needs to die down a little bit, people can't disassociate dying that down, because it's like, oh, but that means I have to die down. And that's not the case. That's really not the case. So yeah, having that healthy separation between you and the farm, being able to do the thing. I'm pretty sure you have hobbies. You do any hobbies? Get back to them hobbies, right? Be the person that you're supposed to be. And it doesn't mean that you're wrapped up every single day in farming, and then it gets to the point where now you start resenting the farm. I've met so many former farmers who end up resenting farming because they made it their identity. So when things got hard, where they needed to die down, but they didn't, they end up hating farming. And I would hate for you to experience that, Summer. So yeah, find out what that balance is. Take a class, do some fun, every now and then. If that means that you have to scale back a little bit to be more of the human that you need to be, do it. Because again, you're not the farm. So always remember that.
That is great advice, y'all. And hang in there, Summer.
You love
it's
girl.
Funny. My husband and I, Warren and I, have been talking about, when the boys are gone, what will we do in our retirement? What is the thing that we love on this farm that we can envision ourselves doing in their absence? Because, more than half of my labor force, and God give thanks that labor laws do not apply to your own children. So they're going to be gone, and it's going to be the two of us. And, we're of an age where in our minds, we're still in our 30s, but our bodies are being like, yeah, no. So feeling it. So being very clear that rabbits and sheep are going to be it. And that means, as much as I love my goats, I'm not getting up to milk. Once that teenage child is gone, I'm not milking anymore, which means that whole goat milk product line is going to have to come under reevaluation and what we're doing. And then, you know, the browse that we're planting, like it's even as deep as what do we plant in our herbal lays mix that's specifically suited for goats. It has to be goats and sheep because the goats are not always going to be here. And that's just one of the questions like we have to ask ourselves. And then being okay with the timeline of when that happens or how that happens. So just intention doesn't mean it's set in stone. It's just you're writing the vision and making it plain, and then sitting back at the mercy of the rest of the circumstances around you. But it can be tiring, even just, I think for me, and I know I'm going over time, but just
no, don't worry about that. You're speaking wisdom right now. Keep going.
The hardest thing for me has been I'm the buck stops here go-to person for all decisions on the farm. Just like I think it's the mom energy exponentially, because I'm answering, what do my kids need? What does my husband need? What does this animal need? What does the farm as a whole need? What does the community need? And the barrage of questions. And I don't know if anybody else farms with their family. So it's not like having an employee, because you get insubordinates with your family members and push back. And they're like, why do I do it that way? Why were we going to do this? And you gotta like maintain this loving and caring space in your own composure to be able to respond to that many questions. So by the time I get to where do we want to be 5 years from now, and I don't know if I'm going to have the energy at the end of the week, let alone in 5 years. But it is important to stop. And we've actually come up with we created a decision-making flow chart for our family. And it's not quite democratic. I mean, we're parents, so okay. So it's not a fully democratic process, but ways in which we allow each of our children who have the agency and a level of autonomy to make decisions over their area of management on the farm. And how are we going to consistently show up and figure out, where are the chickens going to be moved to? Because we have been doing a winter rest cycle where pasture is off limits. And so we've designated dry lot for sheep and goats. And there's hay and these rotations between the dry lot, the stall, and then the woodland. But the chickens, just having them cooped up for periods on end, it's just gross. And it's nobody's happy. So when we move them, you have to actually ask the guy who's in charge of the chickens, but wants zero to do with them right now. How is he going to manage that? And then having every voice or that decision being made equal. And that has been, I think, above marketing, all of the other decisions, the hardest thing is just being the person who has to answer all those questions all the time. And ultimately be the one who underscores and says, okay, this is what we're going to go with. And this is the time frame we're going to get it done in, with as little attitude as possible.
Man, rock star mom. Oh, wow.
Send help. Send help. No, I'm sorry.
Well, hey, Summer, you got this. We're excited. Please let us know how you're doing. If you ever feel like you get burnt out again, send me an email. I'll give you a call directly. All right.
Yes. Hi, Naja. Thanks for joining us today. She says, great talk today. Inspiration for our 5 acres. My love of heritage and historical process. On a wait list for our first GOS feeders. And also have an American chinchilla rabbit. Really grateful to hear your story at the start of our journey. That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Absolutely. Good luck. Morgan says, wonderful chat today. Aaron says, hi, Aaron. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, it's Aaron.
Yay. These discussions are just wonderful. Sharing our stories can really help inspire, remind each other we are all going through similar and very different life stories. That's very true.
Fun fact about Erin, she was my first Marketing Monday guest. So love you.
Love it.
Yeah, next time I go over to Wisconsin, which should be later, early in next couple of months, I definitely want to stop by and say hey to you. Okay.
Excellent. Well, I think that wraps up all of our questions today.
Wow. Keisha, how you feeling being on your first Marketing Monday? How'd it feel?
Good and a bit of a blur. I'm gonna have to go back and be like, what did I actually say out loud? So
We'll send you a
but
recording.
I appreciate the feedback that I've seen in the comments. So I hope it has helped in some way. Like I said at the beginning, I don't have answers, so it was good to just be able to share and have people hopefully receive it well. So thank you again.
Wow. Well, Keisha, again, whoops. I was going to say, Keisha, again, thank you for your humility. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for having the will and heart to even be on here. Again, good character. I'm going to make that like a motto. The best marketing tool is good character. That should be a shirt.
That's the next shirt.
So,
I'd say do it.
yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, I totally would wear that, clearly. But yeah, so we're going to wrap things up. Thank you all for listening and watching this Marketing Monday. If you have any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, definitely send us all an email. Keisha, how can they reach out to you if they're interested in wanting to buy some of your products, or if they're just wanting to know, like, hey, when's that podcast dropping? When's the next episode? Like, how can they get in touch with you?
Thank you, because this is the part where I get to kind of, plug what we have going on. My website is the first stop because the shop is on the website. So highhog.farm/shop. But highhog, highhog.farm. You can also find our antics, most likely to be shared on Instagram and Facebook, which is /highhog farm. And my podcast, we've had our first episode published, just our very first one. We will actually be talking with Leah Penniman of Soulfire Farm tomorrow about motherhood and recording that episode.
That's my buddy.
Farm Mamas, says Leah's a dear friend of mine, a sister in some ways. So that will be the next coming episode, and you can find that at anchor.fm. I believe I'm getting this right. It's hosted on Anchor. So anchor.fm/Diary of a Farm Virgin. And we're just getting started with that because, during the midst of revitalizing your farm and revamping your life after a pandemic, you start something like a podcast because, you have all the time in the world. Perfect. Makes a lot of sense, but it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. Whitney J. of Semenci Farm. So shout out to my sister farm, Whitney J. Semenci Farm. Amazing flower farmer and just all around human being. We have had to learn how to keep our conversations brief because of the giggling.
I love it.
It's called friendship right there.
Yeah. She's an amazing human being. She's amazing. So, again, thank you. Hopefully that helps.
Well, everyone, definitely check out those links. And yeah, the podcast. Now that you had mentioned it, I want to make sure that I listen to it this week. So everyone else, go listen to it this week. Again, the link is right there. And if you got anything from this content, I mean anything from this content, maybe it wasn't even about sheep. Maybe you just, something inside you just grew from this conversation. Definitely support the Livestock Conservancy with likes, shares. Share this with your grandma, your mama and them. Share it with your daddy. Share it with that cousin that you barely talk to. Share it with everybody. coworkers, doesn't matter. We want to make sure that everyone knows that heritage breeds do exist, that they do have importance, and that they can play a role into that. And also, one thing that we'd like to always promote is our Livestock Conservancy membership. I am a conservation champion member, and so basically that is $4 a month, and I get a full membership for $4. I think what's the coffee price at Starbucks now? Was it like $20 a cup or something like that? Something ridiculous, I'm pretty sure. But $4 a month, well, not three, $4 a month, and you can become a member of the Livestock Conservancy. We have a lot of resources and opportunities to give to you. Other than that, Keisha, thank you for being on. Brittany, do we have any more shout outs or any other information we need to give to folks?
I think people are going to listen. They're really, really excited. So
good. Well, that concludes our, I guess, Marketing Monday for February. Thank you again, Keisha. Thank you, Brittany. And again, check out the Livestock Conservancy at thelivestockconservancy.org. And yeah, have a good day, y'all.
Have a good one. We'll see you again tomorrow for our sheep chat.